You are listening to the Amplifying Leadership podcast, where we explore what great leadership really looks like through real stories, actionable takeaways, and expert conversations. I am Tara Lehman, founder and CEO of Amplifying Leadership, here to help you lead with intention and influence. Don't forget to join us on Thursday for Tip Thursday with Tara every week as well. For today, thank you for tuning in to today's guest episode. Today, I am welcoming Toni Will, General Manager of Kalamazoo Wings and President and founder of ToniWill.com. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Tara. How are you?
I'm good, good. So we were actually just talking. We're not that far away from each other, which is great.
We are
Yeah.
not. We're practically neighbors, even though you're in a different country than me. But we are, Canada or Canadians are close to my heart, given my career in hockey as well. So,
Yeah. Oh, very good. Well, why don't we start with learning a little bit about you and leadership and how that fits with you?
you know, um, I get asked this question often, but and the story hasn't really changed. My parents will say that I came out of the womb a leader. And,
I
you know,
love that.
I am the oldest of two. I was born the first day of June. And if anyone's into astrology or anything like that, there's often times when you're born on the first, there's connections to leadership immediately in that. And I'm not super, I know enough to be dangerous, but I've been a leader my whole life. If I'm in a room and someone says, "Can I get a volunteer?" It can't even leave their mouth and my hands up. And now as I'm getting older, I'm like, stop it,
Pull that
Toni.
down.
I'm trying to be more intentional, but yeah, it's just been innate in who I am. And I guess to back up beyond how I came out of the womb, I really started to study leadership in high school and college with business, got my degree in business management, graduated from Western Michigan University here in Kalamazoo. I'm born and raised here, never left, and led the first 13 years of my career in banking and then moved over to the Chamber of Commerce, where I was helping small businesses grow here in my hometown and leading those efforts, which was phenomenal. And
Mhm.
externally, there's a whole internal story that was much more challenging, and I wrote about in my book. And then I was led to pro hockey completely on accident as a female leader in a very male-dominated industry, and
Mhm.
I had no sights on this job at all, and I didn't even apply for it. But it's the best job I never knew I wanted, and I've been doing this now for
Mhm.
12 years. So.
Awesome.
mm,
That's awesome. And that's a good lead into our conversation today, talking about women leaders in male dominated industries. So, why does that speak to you so much?
Oh God. You're looking at the poster child, I feel like some days for it. Uh, it's when I walk into a room, oftentimes over the 12 years there I'm could be one of the only women.
Hmm.
And I never really understood what it felt like, or I didn't notice early on in my career if I was the only woman. And in fact, I used to pride myself on being able to, pull up a chair with the guys and be one of the guys.
Hmm.
And as, as I continued to have life experience and career experience and leadership experience, I thought, why am I doing that? Why
Hmm.
why do I feel like I need to keep up with the guys when I could pave my own way and be
Hmm.
me and also bring women with me alongside me in
Yeah.
this? And I really noticed that when I moved into pro sports and I thought, I want to do some work here. Naive of me at times to think it would have been like everyone's going to be like, yes, Toni, this is an amazing idea and concept. And of course, it hasn't been like that. But it
Hmm.
hasn't, there's certainly allies in the space, but there's certainly people that, just don't get it or want to get it, no matter how
Hmm.
I explain it, is like, listen, there are important women in your lives, just like there's important men in my life. And
Hmm.
we're looking to highlight these women, whether they're your significant other, your daughter, your niece, your neighbor. Like, we're doing important work here. Let's
Hmm.
lift them up. And so we've come a long way, but not as fast as I would like. So I continue to spread the word and live it, not just talk about it, but actually do something about it.
hmm And coming from male-dominated industry myself, I know what it's like to be the only woman at the table sometimes, or the Zoom meetings for a global company in my case. And being the only woman there that's in that leadership, and it can be interesting, And there's some people who are your allies, or your greatest allies, and there's others who you're not too sure, right? Or it's very clear they're not. What do you think about, bringing more women into your industry, or just more women and men or people balance in a leadership table, for example?
Yeah, I think, I'm seeing more women come into sports, and there's a couple things I like to point out about sports in particular.
Hmm.
There's the athlete side and women's professional athletes, which we're seeing a rise in that as well.
Yes.
Now, pay equality isn't there, but like there's momentum. Then
Hmm.
there's the business side, the front office side of sports. No matter what sport you're in, it's called the front office. And then women leaders in that space. That's where I am,
Hmm.
you know, where I sit. And so it's been really important to me, and we're seeing this at the level of hockey, which I lead in. More women are coming into sales roles, marketing roles, creative spaces, and they're coming into this. Now it's like, how do you get them up to the level where I'm at?
Yeah.
And that's the challenge. So it's getting people in a room together. So I created a mentor mentee program in our league, and
Oh, I love that.
yeah, and I create spaces for women to come together. So those of us who've been around the block, have the age, the wisdom, the know-how, can be paired with the next generation. And so not only are we doing a mentor mentee program, but we're also coming together monthly for calls. We get together in person at league meetings. It's a real big ecosystem. And I do this completely out of servant leadership. I have a committee that works
Hmm.
with me. This isn't about Toni Will, it's about helping women lift one another up. Because, to your earlier question, women think differently. The whole
Yes.
notion of men are from Mars, women are from Venus, that book was so popular and that framework because it's true. So when you
Hmm.
have women at the table, we do think differently. And in a way, especially in sports, we're not necessarily emotionally attached to what's happening, in my case, on the ice. We're more
Hmm.
attached to the business outcomes, the community outcomes. And see, men, typically, when I'm sitting in these rooms and have been for well over a decade, they're more emotionally attached to what's happening on the ice.
Hmm.
And that in and of itself, I could give a lot more examples, is really what has set me apart as a leader because I'm not so worried about wins and losses
Hmm.
because this is about community at this level of hockey, at really any level of hockey. So I say all that because the diversity of thought is probably the most critical piece of leadership, and people are afraid of that
Hmm.
because they look at it as conflict. I'm like, no, we're allowed to think differently. We're allowed to look at things differently. Let's embrace this diversity of thought. And so that's the biggest gap I'm seeing, and how I can help this next generation. Let's look at these different things we're facing in our world differently, and embrace that and not feel like there's something wrong with us because we think differently.
It's interesting you bring up diversity of thought as a main thing. I've done some speaking events where I talk about inclusive workplaces and inclusive leadership, and I talk about diversity of thought because if you have all women or all men or whatever at the table, there's a tunnel vision that can happen. And it's not that it's like, hey, let's create the tunnel vision. It's just a natural thing that happens because you don't have a balance, right? And so I love that you've created this mentor mentee program because that actually helps women feel more comfortable too. Because a lot of male dominated industries, and I'm sure yours as well, they don't really recruit for women or try to promote women in that way that makes them feel comfortable with that. Do you find that too?
Oh yes. I mean it 100%. A lot of my success has been personality driven because
Mm-hmm.
once I make a decision, so I'll give you an example that
Sure,
ties
yeah.
back. So I quit drinking alcohol almost 6 years ago, and
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of industries, it's very prevalent. But in sports,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we work in sports entertainment, so I decided I'm going to quit drinking. I don't like my relationship with alcohol. So here now I'm really putting my money where my mouth is because I am not bellying up to the bar with the guys and doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm spreading that message that you don't, in order to do business and do it well, you don't have to you don't have to drink. You
That's
can
true.
you can do this and still be respected because I used to have this belief that I'd only be respected if I was keeping up with the guys at every turn. And that just
Hmm.
isn't true. So, really challenging ourselves to say, wait a minute, who am I? Like
Yeah.
who am I and how do I want to show up and having the confidence to do that. And that to me is where I am like, all right, let's bring the other women together and show what it's like to have a seat at the table and still be you
Hmm.
and not anybody other than that. And that's really hard. That authenticity is really hard. And I'm trying to remember what question you asked me that led me here, but hopefully I'm answering it.
You are. It's about like how do we get more people there and how do we stand up? And I think that's great that you mentioned, I mean, alcohol can be very much of that, those types of industries. My industry was the same. And a quick little story on my side, there was a woman I worked with, and every single time that she was, around the men who was like, would you like a drink or what would you like? She would always have a glass of water. She goes, I'm good. I have an aquatini.
I love that.
It was just a way that then she felt comfortable and confident that she didn't need to drink where she was. But I do want to come back to the mentor mentee thing because I'm really curious about that one. So what are the strategies you can give other companies or industries on how you can build that within your organization? Because that's a newer thought too, right?
Yeah. So first off, you got to have someone that is passionate about this. And it
Hmm.
started off with just me. And the first year I ran it myself because I was like building the plane while flying it. And that's a lot of how I
Hmm.
I just figure things out. I don't have to know how to do something to launch it. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to build this and we'll create this space. And what helped me as, in my up and coming era, and I was part of mentor mentee programs in my community. So I'm like, all right, let's just
Mm.
repackage this. And so not only was I leading it, but because I'm a governor for the board, so instead of a board of directors in professional sports, we're called governors because we're governing the health, wellness, financial vitality of the entire
Okay.
league. So I used my position of power to create something for the other women within the league. And I was the only woman to step forward and say, I'll do that. And I not only am I passionate about it, but I'm also passionate about servant leadership.
Hmm.
And so those two things combined, it wasn't, I just go to the commissioner and I call him and said, this is what I'd like to do. And he said, run with it. And
That's awesome.
so there's all these spaces where I raise my hand and say, I'd like to do this. And if no one else is, or does anyone else want to do this with me? And so that's where we start. And then I create the content based on the pain points we're feeling as
Right.
women in
Right.
sports or women in a male dominated industry or listen, talking about having a personal life while working in sports. This is not a traditional 9 to 5. And
Hmm.
so there are a lot of women that look to me and say, Toni, how did you raise your 3 kids while you worked in this industry? Or how did you date because I got divorced and remarried? How did you do
Hmm.
these things? And so, and it's not just me, I'm just willing to air it all out. Like some people aren't.
Yeah.
Okay. But how else are they going to know what to do if someone isn't talking about their experiences? So it's
Hmm.
as simple as me saying, I'm passionate about this, but I want to do something. And I think that's where some people get held back. They're like, yeah, I'm passionate about women in whatever, but I don't know what to do. And that's okay. But it's like thinking about what's missing instead of what's
Hmm.
already there. And what was missing was a women in sports resource group.
I love that because you're right. We absolutely say, okay, well, we already have this in place, or the law says we have to do this. And it's more like the musts. And instead of thinking about how do we actually encourage it, or how do we support it, or getting the male allies to help support it. I mean, that's a huge piece too, because they could have shut you down.
They could have. They
Yeah.
absolutely could
So,
have. And I
yeah.
have a lot of male allies that are on that board of governors from the commissioner on down. Now, do they all love Toni Will? No. But that I'm willing to be unlikable too. That's just part of it. I've always kind of been that way. And not
Mm-hmm.
that I don't care about people, but what I'm trying to do is care less about what people think and have a very thick skin. And you have to in this role as a GM of a men's pro hockey team. Because when the team is losing, guess who they're coming after?
Mm-hmm.
Publicly, me. So
Yeah.
even
Yeah.
though I have nothing to do with what happens on the ice, it still works that way. And probably it's doubled down on because I'm a woman.
Yeah, that could be too. So how do we get more inclusive workplaces then? Like, you're obviously doing bits and, pieces, and now things are starting to change, but it's probably still slow, I imagine. But how do we take it to other industries so where we can now start to build an inclusive workplace?
Yeah, I think there has to be someone that is speaking up.
That's the hardest part, isn't it?
It is. It is
Yeah.
because when you are the person speaking up, now I didn't give this any thought because it just came second nature to me, but you got to be willing to take some arrows in the fanny.
Hmm.
And that works perfect for me because I'm not the first woman to walk this path.
Hmm.
And this isn't holding, and there's only like one other in our league, and she's fantastic. And I went to her and said, I really want to do this work. Do you want to do this with me? She goes, I have no desire. It has nothing to do about with your mission. It's just not something that I don't want to carry that water. I said, great, I'm going to go with it. She goes,
Hmm.
I love you too. And so it's okay not to be that person. You know you're not, but when you are, just saying, I'm going to do something, or I'm going to find someone like Toni to help me do what I'm doing,
Yes.
because sometimes we don't know what's the next step.
Hmm.
And a lot of
Yeah.
women hold themselves back because they want to know the whole plan before they hit the launch button. And I'm saying, no, no, we're going to do it
Hmm.
as we go. The launch button will come, we don't even have to hit it. We just start going.
Yeah, and it's having the courage to stand up and say something too, right? I mean, for you, it's natural. For others, it's scary, but they want to do something about it. Do you have any thoughts for them who like, I really would like to stand up, but I'm a little bit worried how it'll be received? How do we feel comfortable and confident to do that in a way that is going to hopefully be received right?
Yeah. So there's a couple different paths and it depends on the industry, right?
Hmm.
I'm not, I'm not naive to the fact that pro sports it's more edgy, it's more cool, it's more trendy, where there are certain industries that aren't necessarily like that. Like I came from banking. I wouldn't necessarily
Hmm.
label banking as such, or I wouldn't label Chamber of Commerce work as such. So recognizing that I kind of come from a space where being unique can be celebrated.
Hmm.
But it's finding a person, an ally, and generally someone that's in a position of influence
Right.
to
Hmm.
bounce the idea off of, hey, I'd like your advice on this. What do you think? Here's what I'm noticing is missing in our department or our line of business. It depends how far you want to zoom out. And I've got an idea and I want to own it, but I would love your buy-in.
Hmm.
And you start with one. You don't, go to the masses quite yet. And that's how I did it. I said, let me have
Yeah.
this conversation with the commissioner of the league and let me start there and see.
Yeah. I like
And
that idea because it feels easier to do, especially if you're in an organization that's really not talking about anything to do with inclusive workplaces. It feels comfortable to, even if it's that peer or somebody that you feel comfortable talking to start that conversation, right?
exactly. And the other thing too is because people get nervous when they are having these type of conversations, which is normal
Mm-hmm.
because we care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Write down three points that you want to make on this. Just three. Don't go anymore. Because when you're passionate about something, it is hard to shut up.
That's true.
So, and we've got this beautiful ability to use AI now if you need
Hmm.
help shaping it. And so I didn't have any of that when I launched all this, which is great, but I had the passion and I had my 3 points and I was willing to give of my time because it was that important to me.
Hmm.
And not everyone buys in, and that's okay too. So
Yeah, I
it
mean,
knowing that.
yeah. Yeah, because we all have our own opinions, and like you said, there was somebody who was all for it but didn't want to assist, and that's okay too. You just got to find the people who are willing to start the process, and I think that's a great place to start. So thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
I'm curious what you think about this, but why are we still talking about this?
I'm curious too. I'm curious too.
Because
I
I
know.
talk about it all the time, right? So, yeah.
I mean, I tend to think part of it, and not that I love to go here, but I think it depends, especially in the States, what's happening in politics. I think that's a big part of
Mhm.
it. I think that, while women are holding more leadership positions, we're slower to earn that seat at the table, and we're seeing it happen every generation. It gets better, but
Hmm.
I'm still sitting in rooms where the top tier is all men and the white next in line is women. And I
Hmm.
literally see it with my own two eyes. And so I have a choice. I can look at this like, wow, this is really frustrating. Why isn't there at least one woman there? Or I can look at it like, look at how close we're getting to
Right.
bridging that gap. It is a mindset, and that's how I choose to look at it. So, my daughters are at my stage of life, it probably will look a little different because of the work you and I are doing.
Yes, and I hope so for my daughter as well. I think it's really important that we start to stand up and say, "Hey, me, I'm here too." And I mean, I got where I got to because I asked for that first job, just said, "Hey, I know this job's open and I'm interested and I would love to be interviewed for it." And I had no experience, and they gave it to me because I went and stood up and said, "I'm interested in moving up." And I
Yes.
think that's a tough one too.
It is, and you have what I'm hearing is curiosity. Like, hey,
Yeah.
I'm curious to learn more about this position. And that's what's led me a lot of ways. I'm like, oh, let me learn more. It's not, again, I didn't think of my gender at first. It was just natural
Yeah,
curiosity.
exactly. Yeah, because I was younger. I wasn't thinking about it either. Yeah, just be curious. And if you're interested in something, it's worth at least talking about it and asking about it, right? Absolutely.
Exactly. And I love nothing more than when someone comes to me with a half-baked idea and says, Toni, what do you think of this? I'm passionate about this. I want to do this. And whatever this is, I'm like, I love that you're bringing this to me. And
Hmm.
I'm going to help you get, as long as it's not too insane, I'll
Yeah.
help you, I'll help you get there because,
Yeah,
they have the courage to stand up and talk about it.
absolutely. So if we were to summarize up everything today, was there anything that we missed that you wanted to share as a key point or a key strategy for the ladies out there, or even for the male allies that we may have?
I think I won't swear, but one of the points in my book is to just effing do it.
Hmm.
And I use the full
Yeah.
swear, but it's like
Yeah.
just do it. Like just do whatever it is. And so take action because I see this is where, oh, I've been thinking about doing this. I've been thinking, no, let's go. Find someone that'll help hold you accountable too. And
Hmm.
coaching is a great, not just because I am a coach, an executive coach, but because someone to hold you accountable to take
Hmm.
action.
Yes, I love when I have clients that want just accountability calls, I need to take action. And for myself, I just took action. I just asked, "Hey, I know this job's there, and I'm wondering if you would be willing to interview me. And can you tell me more about it?" It got to me eventually leading Canada. So you never know where that step could take you, right? Because you're showing that you're interested rather than just making the assumption they're going to hire somebody else, for example, right, on a
Yes,
promotion. Yeah.
exactly. Exactly.
Excellent. I think you and I could talk about this all day long because we're both very, very passionate about it.
I know. So it's like this podcast has got my name written all over it.
So, if our audience wanted to learn more about you, connect, or even find your book, how can they do that?
ToniWill.com, ToniWill, 8 letters, lots of punch in it. But yeah, so my book, Rebellious Success, is a lot of what you and I are talking about today, but it's essentially talking about there's no one perfect pathway to our definition of success. It's being published on August 11th.
Oh,
So
congratulations. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, this has been 2 years in the making. And so that along with the coaching I do professional development coaching, but I also help people. A big chunk of my business is helping people reduce or remove alcohol from their lives. And so I
Good for you.
coach to that as well. And then my podcast, Women in dot dot dot, is over at tonywill.com as well. And I'm publicly going to be asking you to be on my podcast because
Oh,
we got
thank
to
you.
keep this conversation going.
We
So
do.
yeah, so all of that could be found at tonywill.com.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. Loved our conversation today, and I look forward to speaking with you again.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Of course, we would like to thank you, our listeners, today. We do hope you gained some valuable insights or practical takeaways from today's conversation with Toni. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with those who may benefit from this conversation, as it's one of the best ways to support our podcast and help us and our guests like Toni reach more leaders with these important stories, tips, and advice. If you are looking to find more time and energy in your day, clarify leadership priorities, build strong teams, I'm here to help. Explore our solutions, offers, and resources at amplifyingleadership.ca, because leadership is better when we do it together.